Motion.
Mr. Walden of Oregon moves to recommit the bill H.R. 986 to the Committee on Energy and Commerce with instructions to report the same back to the House forthwith with the following amendments. Page 3, strike lines 3 through 5 and insert the following. Section 1, findings. Congress finds the following.
Madam
One,
Speaker, the House
on
is not
October
in order.
24th, 2018.
Madam Speaker,
The clerk will suspend.
the House is not in order.
The House is not in order.
It's important for our members to hear the motion to recommit.
The House will be in order. The House will be in order. The clerk will read.
Congress finds the following. 1. On October 24, 2018, the administration published new guidance to carry out Section 1332 of the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act 42 U.S.C. 18052, entitled State Relief and Empowerment Waivers, 83 Federal Register 53575. 2. The new guidance does not amend such Section 1332 and does not permit the Secretary of Health and Human Services to waive protections for individuals with pre-existing conditions, including guaranteed availability and renewability of health insurance, the prohibition on using health status to vary premiums, and the prohibition on pre-existing conditions exclusions. 3. Moreover, the guidance stipulates that any Section 1332 waiver will need to carefully account for any impact on the individual market risk pool and guarantee that access to coverage is at least as comprehensive and affordable as would exist without the waiver. Page 3, line 17, insert before the period the following.
Madam Speaker, the House is not in order. This is important. We put a lot of work into this.
The House will be in order. The clerk will read.
Page 3, line 17, insert before the period the following, including if such substantially similar guidance or rule would allow a state to waiver such requirements as guaranteed availability or renewability of health insurance, the prohibition on using health status to vary premiums, or the prohibition on pre-existing conditions exclusions.
The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this bill is blatantly political in its title. The misleading title of the bill confirms the Democrat majority's passion to score political points instead of governing. Madam Speaker, they claim the agenda is for the people. This bill is for the politics and the TV ads. This motion to recommit is simple, Madam Speaker. First, it strikes the Democrats' misleading title, and it includes findings to make clear that under current law, Health and Human Services cannot waive protections for individuals with pre-existing conditions, period. They are protected. Second, Madam Speaker, the motion to recommit would prohibit the secretaries of HHS and Treasury from reissuing substantially similar guidance, including guidance that allows a state to waive guaranteed availability and renewability of health insurance, the prohibition on using health status to vary premiums, and the prohibition on pre-existing condition exclusions. Madam Speaker, the Trump administration guidance does not amend Section 1332. It does not permit the Secretary of Health and Human Services to waive protections for individuals with pre-existing conditions, like guaranteed availability and renewability of health insurance, like the prohibition on using health status to vary premiums, and the prohibition on pre-existing condition exclusions. Moreover, the President's guidance stipulates that any section of 1332 waivers will need to carefully account for any impact on the individual market risk pool and guarantee that access to coverage is at least as comprehensive and as affordable as would exist without the waiver. Now, this is fully explained, Madam Speaker, in the letter I have here from the head of CMS, Seema Verma. And I want to quote directly from it because I think it's important for our members to understand the facts of the matter here, because facts matter. To be clear, the 2018 guidance does nothing to erode, I'm going to say, Obamacare, Affordable Care Act's pre-existing condition provisions. Nothing. Which cannot be waived under Section 1332. Section 1332 does not permit states to waive Public Health Service Act requirements, such as guaranteed availability and renewability of health insurance, the prohibition on using health status to vary premiums, and the prohibition on pre-existing condition exclusions. Now, why are we here? Why are we having this discussion? Because people at home can't afford the health insurance they're being peddled. And we want states to be able to innovate and cut costs for consumers. That's why we're here. That's what we're for. You don't want that. You're opposed to letting states innovate, apparently. And let's look at what happens today in Grand Island, Nebraska. Madam Speaker, the House is not in order. This is really important work.
The House will be in order.
Madam Speaker, according to Health and Human Services Administrator Seema Verma, Grand Island, Nebraska, a 60-year-old couple making $70,000 a year is paying about $38,000 for their insurance premiums, and that plan under Obamacare gets them an $11,100 deductible. $38,000 in premiums, $11,000 in deductibles, and you call that coverage. I call that unaffordable. Now, meanwhile, we have 7 states that have used this authority under the last administration. See, Obamacare allows this, 1332. Trump expands it. They've been able to drive down premiums by 19.9%. My state is 6%. Other states have been more. Alaska, New Jersey, other states have taken advantage of this. Republicans and Democrats agree we will always protect people with pre-existing conditions. We will always do that. You can run your ads, you can deceive people, you can mislead people, Madam Speaker, but we will always fight to protect people with pre-existing conditions, always. Our plan last year did it, our plan this year does it, and you, Madam Speaker, the House is not in session. And I'll tell you what, Madam Speaker, we would have a vote today on the House floor to do that, to actually enshrine in statute, irrespective of the lawsuit, protections for Americans with pre-existing conditions, except the Democrats in the Rules Committee refused to allow that amendment to be considered on the House floor. They would not do that because it was my amendment. It's my bill. I've been pleading to have this bill considered so we can lock into statute protections for Americans' pre-existing conditions. They want the argument. They want the politics. They don't want the policy. We're for innovation, we're for lower premiums, we're for more consumer choice, and we're for driving down the cost of health care in America so people have coverage they can afford, Madam Chair. That's what our motion to recommit will do, and I urge our support.
Fired. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Michigan seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, I claim time in opposition.
The gentlewoman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Madam Speaker, I rise because this motion to recommit is simply another attempt to take away protections for people with pre-existing conditions. Madam Speaker, at face value, the amendment appears to maintain protections for people with pre-existing conditions. But make no mistake, no matter the language included in this MTR, the goal of the 1332 guidance expands and promotes junk plans that discriminate against people with pre-existing conditions. These plans also make comprehensive coverage for people with pre-existing conditions more expensive. It is not enough to say, my colleagues, that you protect pre-existing condition. It is what happens on the ground that matters. If my colleagues are serious about protecting Americans with pre-existing conditions, I urge them to oppose this amendment, support the underlying bill, and join us in doing what the American public has made very clear they want. While members of the other party may claim they are ready to work to protect individuals, their actions tell a different story. 2 years ago, exactly this week, most House Republicans voted overwhelmingly for a bill that would have gutted the ACA and weakened protections for people with pre-existing conditions. My colleagues, including you, sir, stood on the White House lawn and celebrated that bill and would have made it more difficult for people with pre-existing conditions. A few courageous Republicans who I applaud, including the late Senator John McCain, joined Democratic members and senators in preventing this bill from becoming law. You can boo John McCain if you want.
The House will be in order.
Since then, the administration has tried every play in the book to undercut, sabotage, skirt protections in the ACA, including protections for people with pre-existing conditions. We currently have an open suit from your side that is meant to invalidate the entirety of the ACA, including protections for people with pre-existing conditions. I stand in opposition to this motion because the issue of protecting people with pre-existing conditions is deeply personal to me, as it is to so many people in this room and in our districts. My mom passed away in 2011 from ovarian cancer, and when she was diagnosed, she did not have health care. She had struggled to afford health care her entire life. She had breast cancer as a 31-year-old mom, leaving her with a pre-existing condition for the rest of her life. When she lost her job in 2002, she lost her insurance, and it was impossible to find coverage that she could afford. She went 5.5 years with no insurance, no checkup, no gynecological exam, no one saying you should get tested. In 2008, we finally helped her get insurance. Because of her pre-existing condition, it was $1,000 a month and a $10,000 deductible. She let it lapse and walked into an ER a few months later and was diagnosed with stage 4 ovarian cancer. Now, I am sure my colleagues on the other side of the aisle know exactly what it's like to have a loved one get a terminal diagnosis. Your life as you know it explodes. And that same week and that same month that my life was exploding was the same week and the same month that I spent filing the paperwork for my mom to declare bankruptcy. So no one should be gouged because they happen to be born with a pre-existing condition. We have evolved as a country, as a nation, to see that, and I urge my colleagues to evolve as well. Madam Speaker, in my district, protecting people with pre-existing conditions is not a Democratic or Republican issue. It is what people of all political backgrounds are demanding of us as their representatives. That is our mission. That is our mandate, and to ignore the interests of our constituents at this point is dereliction of duty, plain and simple. I urge my colleagues to join me in opposing this amendment that would hurt people like my mom. To my colleagues across the aisle, do the right thing. Put people before politics. Vote against this amendment.
Members are reminded to direct the remarks to the chair. Without objection, the previous question is ordered on the motion to recommit. The question is on the motion to recommit. Those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. No. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it.
Madam Speaker, I ask for a recorded vote.
A recorded vote is requested. Those favoring a recorded vote will rise.